is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello and welcome to The World Today, live from CGTN in London. I'm Polly Middlehurst. Our top stories this hour. India sets a global record in new daily coronavirus cases for the fourth straight day. The Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, says a storm of infections is shaking his country. A fire at a hospital treating coronavirus patients in the Iraqi capital kills dozens. Also today,
it's another big step to relax UK COVID rules as 8,000 fans are currently watching a football cup final in Wembley Stadium.
And in Mexico, a rabbit breeder is using science to raise the biggest bunnies in the world. India's catastrophic COVID crisis is deepening by the day, with the country consistently reporting global record rises in daily infections. In the 24 hours to Sunday morning, nearly 350,000 more cases were reported, with nearly 3,000 more lives lost. The government has now deployed the army to transport vital medical supplies to the hardest hit areas. Ravinder Bawa has this report from Delhi.
Well, it's unfortunate that a lot of lives are being lost because of the lack or shortage of oxygen in the country. There are a lot of steps now being taken at different levels, from local to national to international. At the local level, governments are setting up control rooms. Hospitals have been asked to set up audit committees so that they can actually monitor a rational use of this oxygen which is available. At the national level, the government has pressed Indian Air Force into service to actually pick up the empty, tankers, empty oxygen tankers, and take it to the oxygenation plants, from where the oxygen will be refilled into these tankers, brought back to the cities and towns where it is required on trains to make it faster. What has really happened is it is showing the whole failure is now showing the glaring gaps in the transportation system. There is a medical oxygen available, but it is not reaching the hospitals at the right time, and that is the reason we are seeing this kind of loss of lives. At an international level, the government has reached out to many countries. France has committed, so has Pakistan. In fact, the neighbor with whom they have not had good relations for a long time has also offered support. From Germany, 23 oxygen manufacturing plants which are mobile will be brought in. Singapore has already sent 3 cryogenic these tankers which will have a larger capacity. So these steps are being taken at different levels. The government has sprung into action, but unfortunately it is after a lot of loss of lives and that the government has really realized that this is something that they needed to prepare for. And it really shows that how, whether it's the central government or the state government, they have failed in preparing for the second wave, which was already announced much in advance. There were many signs which were showing that the second wave is going to hit India badly.
Ravinder Bawa speaking to us there. Well, European countries have begun restricting travellers from India to reduce the spread of the Indian COVID variant. Quarantine and an all-out ban of passengers from the South Asian country are being enforced at airports in both France and Germany, as Natalie Carney explains.
Germany has begun banning all travellers from India, except for German citizens, in a move aimed at protecting the country from further infections. It becomes the latest country to restrict travel from the South Asian nation over the new variant found there, following Canada, Britain and Kuwait. France, too, has imposed a 10-day quarantine on travellers arriving from India, including French citizens.
In 10 days, you have to do a PCR test and send it in. We have to retest in 10 days, which is also very good.
French President Emmanuel Macron says Paris stands with India in this struggle, while Boris Johnson says the UK is looking at what more it can do to help. The European Union will discuss its support for the COVID-ravaged country in the upcoming EU-India leaders meeting on May the 8th. Meanwhile, things are improving in parts of Europe. France will reopen elementary schools on Monday with the administration of saliva tests for students. And Italy can begin welcoming customers to outdoor areas following 6 weeks of closures. Hungary, too, has reopened restaurants and bars to patrons following the announcement that around 35% of the population had received a first dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, a benchmark the government had set to further ease restrictions. Yet as many EU countries begin opening up, Germany is back to tightening up. The country's pandemic response is now largely mandated by the federal government, meaning that individual states can no longer override federal lockdown recommendations. Dubbed the national emergency break, areas with infection rates higher than 100 per 100,000 residents for 3 consecutive days must now implement federal measures such as closing shops, schools, and abide by a nighttime curfew.
If you consistently limit contacts and make clear and comprehensible restrictions, then it's possible to come down from very high incidences within a manageable period of time.
Yet some do not agree. Protesters opposed to stricter coronavirus rules took to the streets of Germany's financial capital, Frankfurt, on Saturday night, carrying signs and chanting, "We no longer accept our freedom being curtailed."
Some argue that Germany is tightening measures in order to buy itself some more time with its vaccination campaign, which did have a slow start. To date, roughly 23% of the population have had their first jab, yet just shy of 7% are fully vaccinated. There is another concern that the federal government could be considering special privileges for the vaccinated. According to a key document that was coordinated within the Bundestag, Berlin believes that those that have been vaccinated should be exempt from curfew restrictions and be allowed special privileges and allowances into shops and other special areas, a move that would likely divide the population. Another vaccination summit between the German Chancellor Angela Merkel and the heads of the 16 federal states is planned for Monday. Natalie Carney for CGTN in Munich.
Well, here in the UK, the government's staging trials aimed at getting people safely back into mass gatherings. Tests are taking place at major football matches, including the English League Cup final at Wembley Stadium. Yola Abdafid is there for us. Yola, thanks for joining us. I'm guessing fans really appreciating being back at the game. How's it being organised?
Oh, absolutely. And about an hour and a half ago, this place was cheerfully boisterous, if I could put it like that. People were out and enjoying themselves, walking up from the tube station up to the stadium. And there were obviously quite a lot of people had organised their tickets in advance. They'd had to, because it's quite a stringent policy for the 8,000 people, fortunate people, to go in and watch Tottenham Hotspur play Manchester City in this League Cup final. 2,000 fans have travelled down from Manchester, and 2,000 Spurs fans, and then 4,000 other tickets have been allocated. Now, people had to have a lateral test in the last 24 hours before they could be allowed to go in, a negative test obviously, a PCR test in the last few days, and they will have to have another PCR test in the next few days to show that they didn't contract COVID-19 in the stadium itself. Now, a lot of these people obviously had to print off their tickets, they had to show that, they couldn't carry bags in, they had to wear masks inside the stadium, but they're inside there now and they're watching the game, the first live game that many of them have seen in the last year. So obviously people were very, very pleased and happy to be out and looking forward to the game.
And this not only the test event as a return to mass gatherings, is it, Yola?
No, I mean, for the punters walking up today, it's a football game and they're looking forward to it. But actually, it's a scientific test. It's a trial, a pilot between the government and a group called the Events Research Programme. And these are a group of experts, they're business people, they're industry, health experts, scientists, and they will conduct a whole list of events, which actually started last week with the World Snooker Championships and the FA Cup semi-finals here at Wembley. There'll be 4 events in Liverpool in the next few weeks, and then the Brit Awards in London before the FA Cup final, May the 15th, in Wembley behind me. Now, if all goes well and there's no spike in transmission, that people don't contract the virus because of these mass events, then the government can decide, the various departments and the Prime Minister can decide whether now they can lift all the restrictions. If not in the middle of May, then possibly by June. And many ministers have been saying this for several months now. To get out of this third and final lockdown, many people would hope that the government could lift all social restrictions in terms of COVID-19 by June. But all that depends, Polly, if these events, including this football game today, passes off with any incidents.
Yola Abdafid, thanks very much indeed. Well, England's football bodies are boycotting social media in response to online racist abuse of players. Clubs across the Premier League, English Football League, Women's Super League and Women's Championship will all switch off their Facebook, Twitter and Instagram accounts next weekend. They want social media companies to do more to eradicate online hate. Let's bring you more now on the coronavirus crisis unfolding in India. Let's get some analysis on that. We're joined by Dr. Deepti Gurdasani, who's an epidemiologist at Queen Mary Hospital in London. Thanks very much for joining us. When you look at what's happening to India's healthcare system, differs across many states, of course. Are medical staff coping in some areas and not as well in others, like in Delhi, or is this what we're seeing as a total collapse of the Indian healthcare system?
I think there are certainly differences. So we're seeing exponential rise in cases all across India at this point in time, but some areas are much more advanced in the stage of the pandemic. So certainly Delhi is one of the worst hit areas, and there are bed shortages, staff shortages, and oxygen shortages. And it's in a really, really dire situation. Many other places are not overwhelmed necessarily to that degree, but if no action is taken soon, they will very likely be there very soon, because the rate of rise is worrying all across the board.
And we know the UK is looking to help India by sending 600 medical devices, including oxygen concentrators and ventilators. Is that going to make enough of a difference? What else is needed?
I think any help is obviously useful, but I think, that is sort of a drop in an ocean, because I think we need to remember that although the crisis is really, really bad now, it's going to worsen over the next 3 weeks, because the deaths and the hospitalizations we're seeing now are people who got infected about 3 weeks ago, because there's always a lag between when people get infected and when they get hospitalized. And that means that, unfortunately, hospitalizations and deaths will continue to rise for at least a month ahead. And not only does the government need to deal with the shortages now, they need to plan for the shortages in the future. So I think there needs to be as much support from the international community as possible in terms of drugs, ventilators, oxygen supplies, and also from within India in areas where there is a surplus. These need to be sort of moved to areas that are really badly hit.
Meanwhile, there's been criticism, hasn't there, of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who's now urging people to get vaccinated as quickly as possible. Can that be organised and achieved quickly enough with a population of over 1 billion people?
So I think vaccines are a hugely important part of this, but we're seeing a pandemic with exponential growth. So right now we're seeing doubling of this pandemic, so doubling of the number of cases in 5 to 6 days. No matter how quickly we vaccinate people, people are going to die unless we take the step of putting in the lockdowns to really curb the spread of infection right now. There's no time at this point in time, and there needs to be an emergency brake applied so that healthcare services can cope, cases can come down, and then vaccination rollout can proceed. But the rollout of vaccination cannot cope with an exponentially spreading pandemic. We really, really need to have lockdowns put in place.
And we've seen pictures of those super spreader events, haven't we? The Kumbh Mela and the Holi Festival, as well as people ignoring social distancing rules despite the crisis in Delhi. Is that changing now as people begin to see these news reports filter out?
I mean, I don't think the public messaging has really been good on this. Public messaging 2 months ago was that the pandemic is over in India. And even while spread has been happening for the last 6 weeks, the government hasn't really put in place any restrictions. Until a few days ago, West Bengal was still having huge election rallies, and most places just have nighttime curfews and not any lockdowns. So yes, I mean, certainly I don't think the message has reached the public. And if the public isn't really responding to what's happening, it's because the government has been saying for a while that this is over, and the government doesn't seem to realize the urgency and what's at stake here.
Dr. Gurdasani, thanks very much for your time. Still to come on The World Today, we meet the rabbit breeder who's using science to raise the biggest bunnies in the world.
More than 100,000 people in Italy have now died from COVID-19.
The vaccination programme offers some hope for the future, but intensive care units are near capacity.
The Spanish government is hoping to vaccinate over 1 million people by next month.
Living in Germany are struggling with their mental health.
Hungary is supplementing the EU's vaccine rollout, buying doses from Russia and China to speed up the process.
4 million people have tested positive in France.
After a grim winter, the promise of a spring bloom that could mean freedom for millions.
Welcome back. A reminder of our top stories on CGTN. India sets a global record in new daily coronavirus cases for the 4th straight day in a row. The Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, says a storm of infections is shaking his country. And 8,000 football fans have been taking part in a mass trial at the English League Cup final today in London. Now, a fire sparked by an oxygen tank exploding has killed at least 82 people and injured more than 100 at a hospital in the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. The now burnt-out Ibn al-Khatib hospital was being used to treat coronavirus patients. Laith Al-Haidar joins us now with more from Baghdad. Thanks very much for joining us. What do we know about how the fire broke out exactly?
Yes, the fire started in the 2nd floor. Nobody yet knows exactly what's happened, but the investigation should be shown after 24 hours from the accident. But the General Khalid Mohan, Chief of Civil Defense, said that the delay of calling for the civil defense was one of the reasons that the fire expanded toward the 3rd floor and the 1st floor. But within the 20 trucks of fire extinguishing, they were able to contain the fire. The number of casualties, they were too big because the 2nd floor was meant to be for the coronavirus cases. Those people are cautious due to the being connected to the ventilating system, so they cannot move easily like other people. So that's why it's hard for the staff to evacuate all the people, the COVID cases as well. So the Minister of Health said they evacuated like 200 people to other hospitals and nearby clinics. Prime Minister said that he will suspend 3 members, governmental members. One of them is Minister of Health, the Governor of Baghdad, and the Rasafa Health Office, the head of the Rasafa office. So those 3 should be in the investigation within 5 days and should be concluded within that time. Also, Muqtada Sadr said that this accident might be deliberately happened in order to confuse the coming election in Iraq. So let's notice that the Minister of Interior is part of the Sadr bloc. So it's something like, some people trying to make use of this event in political side. That's why the Prime Minister also said that there should not be any kind of political biddings here and there. So, yes.
Laith Al-Haidar, thanks very much indeed. Let's take a look now at some other news stories from around the world. And a missing Indonesian submarine has been found deep in the Bali Sea. The country's army and navy say the vessel was found broken into at least 3 main parts. The President, Joko Widodo, has sent his condolences to relatives of the 53 crew who perished. The submarine lost contact on Wednesday as it prepared to conduct a torpedo drill. The United States, Australia, Singapore, Malaysia and India all provided assistance in the search for the missing vessel. Activists are criticising an agreement between South Asian leaders and Myanmar's military chief. They're vowing to continue protests, which have been ongoing since the military seized power from the elected government on February the 1st. On Sunday, hundreds took part in a motorbike rally in Mandalay. Nearly 750 people have been killed during the army's crackdown on demonstrations. Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has resigned, triggering an early election in June. It follows months of protests over his handling of last year's conflict over the disputed enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh. Pashinyan agreed to a Russian-brokered truce after 6 weeks of fighting between Azerbaijan and the ethnic Armenians in the country. Millions of Albanian voters headed to the polls on Sunday. That follows a sometimes violent campaign that is thought to have left the two main parties almost neck and neck. Both the ruling party and the leading opposition have pledged to enact reform aimed at moving towards EU membership. Around 100 firefighters are battling wildfires in Northern Ireland's Mourne Mountains. Coast Guard helicopters are being used to help transport fire crews to remote locations to tackle the blaze. The fire service says the wildfires began on Friday and were likely to have been caused by dry and warm weather conditions. Now, for decades, most UK gardeners have chosen peat-based compost for planting up their shrubs and flower beds. But that habit has unwittingly ended up damaging a crucial way of naturally storing carbon that's taken hundreds of years to build up. Well, now the UK government has promised to phase out sales of peat compost. That was supposed to happen by last year, but campaigners are arguing that just hasn't happened, as Kitty Logan reports.
Spring is here, time to fertilise soil for the growing season. The Sprout, their charity, cultivates a London allotment for people with special needs. Here, composting is part of the cycle of gardening, but many casual gardeners want convenience, instant colour and ready-made compost to save time. For decades, most customers chose peat compost. The Peat-Free April campaign is now asking gardeners to buy alternatives to fight climate change.
We're still ripping this, essentially a fossil fuel, this massive store of carbon out of the ground for the most trivial of purposes, really. I mean, I love gardening, I'm a passionate gardener, but I know I can garden perfectly well without peat. We do not need to destroy this valuable habitat and exacerbate climate change.
Peat is the world's biggest carbon store, but it's excavated for commercial uses such as compost. 80% of UK peatlands are now damaged, and as they degrade, they emit more carbon. Peatlands are also vital wildlife habitats, and they prevent flooding. In the Peak District, a restoration project is working, and as the peat regrows, nature flourishes. The government had pledged to phase out peat compost by last year. That hasn't happened.
The only solution now is for government to legislate, which would be a very easy thing to do. We already have alternatives. They should simply ban the sale of peat-based composts.
But with a lockdown boom in gardening, eliminating peat is proving hard to achieve.
Many people simply want the convenience of picking up a bag of compost from their local garden centre. Not everyone is looking at the contents, but there is increasing public awareness now and more demand for peat-free compost.
But the ingredients like bark or coir from India aren't easy to source. Garden centres are struggling to stock enough peat-free compost.
The problem at the moment in just the sheer availability of the product that goes into a peat-free compost mix. To actually get good quality and sustainable products is a real challenge at the moment.
The company says it's working on solutions but wants government support to develop more peat-free products.
We've gone from probably only about 30% peat-free, if I look back 7-8 years ago, to this over 70% now in terms of what we've actually got in the market. But it's the last bit that we're chasing to make it sustainable and of quality that we all need as gardeners to grow good plants.
Of course, the most sustainable method of composting is making green compost with garden waste, putting what nature leaves behind back into the soil. Kitty Logan, CGTN, London.
And finally, in Mexico, scientists are creating the largest rabbits on Earth using selective breeding. CGTN's Alistair Baverstock visits the mega bunnies, as they're told, and learns more about the secret to their phenomenal growth. Take a look.
The rabbit, one of humanity's oldest companions. They have been bred, eaten and kept as pets for hundreds of years. And as with other domesticated creatures, selective breeding has allowed these tiny creatures to turn into giants. These are some of the world's biggest rabbits, bred here in Mexico from the Flanders and Spanish giant species. At nearly a metre in length and weighing up to 9 kilograms, they are some of the largest of their species in the world. Quiro Joaquin from Mexico's Puebla state has been breeding these enormous animals for the past 2 years as part of his studies to be a veterinarian.
Rabbits are famous for their reproductive abilities. They can produce broods once every month and become pregnant with the next generation while still breastfeeding the previous one. So I'm still studying and deepening my knowledge of genetics and the species to produce better animals every time.
Indeed, Quiro believes his rabbits have a higher calling. Bunnies are commonly used in psychotherapy, ranging from treatment of PTSD to addiction recovery.
The giant rabbits are very calm. They allow people to touch them, have very soft fur, don't make any noise or sudden movements, and help to generate a sense of responsibility in those who are tasked with caring for them. So they are ideal for use in therapy and recovery.
Of course, some buyers may simply see bigger rabbits as a source for bigger dinners. As for the future, Quiro's ultimate aim is to create the world's largest leopard, that's the zoological term for rabbit, and export them across North America.
My aim is to achieve specimens that aren't only large but also heavy. The goal is a rabbit that weighs 10 kilos. It will be a lot of work, but it's all part of the project.
Alistair Baverstock, CGTN, Huachinango, Mexico.
Well, that's just about it for The World Today. Thanks very much for watching. We are available, of course, on smart TV apps such as Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire and Android TV. You can also find us on YouTube and Dailymotion as well, of course, as at cgtn.com and on the CGTN app. From all the team in London, goodbye. Fraser is next.